Welcome back to the #1 home improvement YouTube channel in the world. Today we're going to be building a custom drawer. This is not just any drawer. This is a expensive drawer. If you look over there in the background, you'll see what is a traditional kitchen cabinet lower or base cabinet. You have one drawer with the drawer face on the top, and then you have doors that just open up to shelves. These high-end custom kitchens don't typically have doors on the bottom. They have 3 rows of drawers, and they don't have just any drawers. I'm going to go grab one of these and show you what an economy drawer is and compare it to this custom high-end for rich people only drawer. Some sarcasm there, so calm yourself. This drawer here came out of a 1994 house, so it's about 26 years old, and you can see it has held together just great. It's nailed here. I'm guessing there's probably also some glue between this piece and this piece. It's made of MDF. Nothing wrong with MDF. Has a very thin bottom. You see all the staples along the bottom there? Very functional. Not exactly a beautiful piece of carpentry. These cabinets came out of a house that I remodeled last year, and they had custom cabinets built. Very much like what I'm building today. It's not real wood. That's a paper veneer made to look similar to wood. Now this one here is all wood. What you're seeing is real domestic maple wood right here in the USA. This is the back. You will never see the back. This is the front. You will never see the front once the drawer face goes on. The only thing you're going to see is this right here. No words can describe how beautiful this looks. And when you slide this drawer out and you've got company over, you're going to hear oohs and ahs from your guests. Now, this is an undermounted drawer slide. Full extendable. I believe the weight capacity is 170 pounds. These are the drawer slides, or glides, whatever you want to call them. Blum Movento. I'll have all the details for these in the description below. They are soft closing and self-closing. Going to give you a close-up of this, how this works here. You just close it, and it just keeps on going. These guys here are the only thing that gets screwed to the actual drawer. So you don't see them from the side. When you pull your drawer out, this is all still hidden inside the cabinet. It comes out 100%, and no drawer slides or glides shown on the side, just this beautiful piece of wood. If having a beautiful, amazing kitchen is your thing and you want to do it yourself, this is one method to do it. It is my chosen method because of the way it looks and how easy it is to make. So even though I'm using these specific Blum under-mounted drawer slides, you can use this same process for side-mounted and different brands. This costs about 35 bucks for the pair. You would think it'd be a lot more, but it's not. Like I said, I'll put a link down in the description of where I got these from. I think it's cabinetparts.com. The main tool is going to be the pocket hole jig. I have it set up for 1/2 inch. I'll be using all 1/2 inch plywood. This is my setup. Probably don't need these 2 back pieces. The base is nice to be able to clamp onto your workbench. These rails that go out to the side are nice, so that it's not teeter-tottering on the middle piece here. Back piece, I just put it there because I felt like it. The drill is set up in the drill guide to 1/2 inch. I have it just a little bit short, the 1/2 inch line down there, and I'll get to why I have it like that now once we get to assembling this. So you're going to want to stay tuned. Don't be skipping or clicking off. There's lots of, groundbreaking information in this video. The block here, the drill guide block, this is also set up for 1/2 inch. So make sure everything is set up for 1/2 inch if you're using 1/2 inch. The next tool, important tool, is a dado stack. I could use the router table and a router bit, but I didn't want to. All 1/2 inch plywood does not all measure the same 1/2 inch. Now these go a specific direction. You see it's got an arrow on them. These also have a specific direction. This is one shim that gets me to the exact width of a dado that I need. It does come in a kit format. You can see there are a lot of different shim thicknesses here. I already have my sides cut. They're just left over from the last drawer. I will have to cut my front and back. So the length that these are supposed to be cut at is 21 inches. These are 21-inch drawer slides. So your sides have to be 21 inches. This is going to be another gorgeous, beautiful, magnificent, massive drawer. Look at that wood grain on there. This one here's got a knot hole. That's even better. So you might be wondering the height of it. How do you know what to cut the width or the height of it as? Well, it's going to be 1 inch less than your opening, your top to bottom opening. So say if we're building the drawer for this one here, it would be 1 inch less than that measurement there. For the fronts and the backs, how do you know how wide to cut that? There's a couple ways to do it. I like to do it in place. I like to mount the drawer glides first in the cabinet and then take my measurement across where they sit. And that is from the outside of here to the outside of here. For the drawer that I'm building, the distance between the outside and the outside is 14 1/8. So I go just a little bit more, 14 1/8 plus a 16th. And I use the table saw to make my cuts. So I have the table saw set up to 14 1/8 plus a little bit more. Now that I have the fronts, the backs, and the two sides cut to their proper width, the proper height, I have to cut a dado in them. So I'm going to unplug the table saw. I do take some table saw safety seriously, and reaching in there, grabbing the blade is something I don't want to do with it plugged in. This just comes off, it just rests right in there. It does have these leveling screws to get a level. This is a homemade one that I made for the dado stack. See how wide it is? But first we need to take this out. Well, there's the inside. That nut comes off. That big washer comes off. The blade comes off. So I usually just grab the blade. Keep in mind the table saw is unplugged. And I use my very high-end expensive channel locks. And grab a hold of the nut. And that's it. It doesn't take much to break it loose. This is a great blade. I've had this for 2 years and it's still perfect. Perfectly sharp. Look at the tips of those carbide blades there. I'm going to take one last look at my dado stack to make sure everything is oriented correctly. Got my finger in the hole and I'm just going to slide it all down on there over the arbor. Washer goes on. Nut goes on. You want these middle chippers, I think they're called. I'm calling them chippers. Just at 90 degrees to each other. There's one here. And there's one there. So I can spread these out just a hair more. At this stage you can, I need some WD-40 on that. Crank it up a little bit. Grab a hold of it. And snug it down. First thing we got to figure out is how high this blade is. There's a lot of different methods to do this. I've got these brass measuring devices. This one here is a 1/4 inch. So you can use this. You slide this up against the blade, and there's a couple different blades, a couple different teeth on this blade here. And I like to go with the ones that are angling out. They're the tallest. So this needs to come way down. You can use a regular tape measure. You can use a piece of 1/4 inch plywood, anything that you know that is a 1/4 inch. Why am I saying a 1/4 inch? Because that's how deep the dado is going to be into the sides and the front and the back. Now, if you don't get it right the first time, don't worry. Because you always run this through some scrap wood and test fit it first. Never run this through your front and your backs without testing it. So this piece of wood is the front, and it needs to be a certain distance up from the bottom. to make room for our undermounted drawer slides. And that dimension happens to be 1/2 inch. This piece of wood happens to be 1/2 inch. So an easy way to do that is to use it as a guide. We're ready to run a scrap piece of wood through there to get a test fit. I have already done that on previous drawers. And this is what you should do also. Use your setup guide or your previous scrap wood that was dialed in correctly to set this up. So I'm gonna drop this on here again, run this through. Keep in mind this is still unplugged and it is perfect. Goes through perfectly. You can see that thing just barely moves from light friction. Another thing you want to do with your scrap before you get set up to go on your good wood is test it. Make sure you got the thickness right for it to fit in your dado. Not all 1/2 inch plywood is the same. And the next thing I like to do is stage my wood right here, and I want the dado side down. So I know that the sides with the wood grain or the fancy wood grain is not going to have a dado in it. It's going to be on the outside. Now the front and the back, you're not really ever going to see it. You will see the inside of it. So if you have a scratch or something like that, this is really getting down to the fine details. So if you have a scratch or a dent or a nick, you want that facing either the back of the cabinet or what will be the back of the drawer face, not the inside of the drawer. Now normally I would just zip through these, but I want to double check. In case something is off, I only ruin just one. I can just tell because I've done so many of these that it looks perfect. Perfect thickness. Everything just looks perfect. The next step is to drill the pocket holes and screw it together. I have it set up in the way that, in the orientation that it goes together. Our pocket holes will be going in the front and the back. Our pocket holes are going to be on the front and they go in at this angle and screw into the side here. Now you can mark these out or just eyeball them, but I'm going to do 3. The only reason I'm drawing this out is to kind of show you. You don't want to make the mistake in drilling them on the wrong side. You want them going in this direction, towards more the meat of the sides. You don't want it going in this direction. One, you'll see them from inside the drawer, and there's a lot less meat of the wood for the screw to screw into. So you can see these lines here. This is where the screw will go if you use the first hole. This is where the screw goes if you use the second hole and the third hole. So eyeball it up where you want it and clamp it down. So since we're working with 1/2 inch plywood, these are the pocket hole screws. I've had people ask me if I've found a replacement for pocket hole screws other than the Craig brand of screws. I honestly haven't looked for something that is less expensive. These have a pretty unique design to them. These are again for 1/2 inch and they have a specific size head, a specific kind of a self-drilling tip to them. These are coarse thread. The reason I'm using coarse thread is because it's plywood. You also want coarse thread on any sort of soft wood. What I'm doing is feeling inside there with my middle finger to make sure that the dado on the side is nice and smooth and flush with the dado on the front. Here's what it looks like all clamped up. It is okay if this board here is slightly this way of this board here, because pocket holes have the tendency, once they go in, to suck this board in that direction. Now, just out of habit, I do drop a square in here and take a look at how it lines up. The way it's clamped up real tight like that, it's a 90-degree angle on that cut, so I've never had an issue with it being out of square. We're almost to the point where I tell you why I left that collar just a little bit more, just to make this a little bit more shallow. Okay, so why I left that collar a little bit short is you want to do some test setups to get that depth perfect, so that you're not poking through on the finished side of whatever you're working on. But you do want this to compress. You want it to compress pretty tight so that there is a constant tension on the threads and the head of that screw. So I like to be able to sink it in there and squish. Not crush it and blow it through, but squish it so that it's compressed, wanting to expand, and that keeps it tight. It's time. We're almost done. It's only been maybe 5-6 minutes since I started this. We need to get the dimensions of the 1/2-inch plywood that goes to make up the bottom of this. One dimension is real easy to find. You just measure from here to here. So you can see from right there to right there is one measurement. And the other measurement should be from here to here minus 1/2 inch, because we made that 1/4 inch depth of cut. Now, if you remember, I said the depth of the bottom of the drawer was 20.5. This is leftover from the last piece. So there was another section here that made the drawer bottom for another drawer. And it's already been run through the table saw. And I did take a 1/16 off. You don't want it super, super tight. You want a little bit of room to wiggle. 1/16 over half. Only have as much blade exposed as necessary to cut the wood. Okay, it's time to screw this thing together. I don't think I'm going to finish before the battery goes dead, so I'll have to go get another battery. Next. I have this clamped up just like I did when I screwed the other side on. There's probably something that you're thinking about right now, and you're wondering, what is he going to do? Is he going to leave it that way? We're just going to have to stay tuned to the end of the video, and I'll show you. I will answer your question that you have right now. I guarantee it. Now that the drawer box is built, it's time to attach these latches that the guides attach to. I'm going to use a 1/16 drill bit to do a pilot hole. You can use these 2 screw holes here that go in diagonally, or there are 2 screw holes here that go right straight into the bottom of your drawer. Since I used a 1/2 inch for the bottom of the drawer, these screws here will work perfect. In order for these drawer glides to fit correctly, the back has to get notched out. So I'll mark right here and right here, and this gets notched out. And this will drop down into that notch, and then we have to drill a hole in the back. Almost done. We have to drill a hole in the back of these boxes for this piece. This little tab here goes in a hole, and this little lever here is an adjustment that raises or lowers this tab. So what I've been doing is I just line it up and give it a tap to mark the hole. So I have a little dent in the back where a hole needs to be drilled. I start out with a small drill bit. I got a piece of tape on there so I don't go too deep. So I gradually step up the size of the drill bit. It just allows you to drill a hole a little bit more carefully. So you can purchase jigs that Blum makes to locate this hole, cut these notches out, to locate the holes to pre-drill for these latches. I decided not to do that, just kind of made up my own method, and it's been working out pretty good. There you go. If you can see in there, there's a hole with that metal tab, and if you need to, you can move this little lever here up or down and move this thing around. Did you really think we were done? Not a chance. Next up is the edge banding. This is a pre-finished maple edge banding, made in the USA. Link for all this will be in the description. Video's getting a little bit on the long side. If you haven't seen anybody do this before, it's pretty easy. You just measure out some edge banding and give it a cut. Cut a little long until you have it on there. Then you can go back and trim it. Just using a razor blade, utility knife, razor blade. They do make tools, which I probably should get. Probably should get one of those tools. And it trims everything nice and neat. Just makes things real easy. Oh, you need an iron. This is an iron-on situation here. Like I said, leave it a little bit long. And I line it up with the inside edge and get her stuck down. I've never burned it. It's turned all the way up. You can see how tacky it is on the underneath side of the overhang. This is my favorite part, well, of anything that has to do with cabinets. For some reason, I really like putting edge banding on.